was dying or in the process of dying. We definitely acknowledge that. Just to make it clear to everybody here, I think everybody knows that we have a 3-year establishment and warranty period, and we talked to the contractor and their subcontractor about this, as well as the landscape architect on the project, and the decision was made to go ahead and wait till the fall to replace anything that's dead or close to being dead, so that way it can actually establish and they can continue to maintain it. We did have one compliment on the work performed by Lane Corman on all 3 of the design-build projects. That was very nice. And a writer pointed out that the stop signs, some stop signs need to be installed at the Sam's Club parking lot. We are coordinating with Sam's Club to try to work something out with that intersection. Obviously, that's private property. We can't just go stick a stop sign out there. But we would like to work with Sam's Club to come up with the best configuration of that new intersection leading into their parking lot, so we don't have an accident or somebody trying to enter the parking lot versus somebody trying to drive through.
There's a couple more, David.
Yeah, thank you. Writer states that recommended that some workout or exercise equipment be located along the shared use path of Gorkmar at different stations. I think that's all fine and good, but it's not something that VDOT should really be getting into. We're a transportation agency. But, you know, in the future, if somebody can work something out, I think that, you know, maybe it would be a good addition.
I did have a question on that one, and that was the right-of-way.
Yes.
Looking next to the shared, how much additional right-of-way do we have? If we could just give it, obviously no hurry on it because nobody has it budgeted, but
Yeah.
is there enough right-of-way that we can fit it in?
It depends on the location.
Okay.
There are some areas where it's very tight, right up behind the shared use path, but then there's some other areas where there's some flat spots with some right-of-way. So
On the additional right-of-way for the widening the road.
That's
It
what I
would
was
be-
wondering.
It could be a somewhat temporary thing if the road was ever widened, but that could be a permanent agreement where it could be placed there and no cost to the department to move in the future.
Right.
For a while.
yeah, but
Okay.
most of that right-of-way is on the other side of the road than the shared use path. We do have the sidewalk over there, but I think there's some potential opportunity spots.
Okay.
And then we had a question about why there are no flowers planted in the planters on the Riley GSI. There are some flowers planted in there. We saw that some of them popped up early in the spring. We're going to go over that in more detail later in the presentation. Morgan, I know you asked to go over that, right? So we've got some information put together for that.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
Dave, before you leave that,
Yes.
somebody commented about the grass, and I had a question about, there seems to be an odd combination of grass and very aggressive weeds out there. And I don't know what the plan is and when the mowing starts and who does that.
Yes.
For everybody's
The
benefit.
mowing was supposed to start on Tuesday of this week. The subcontractor, the group that planted all the landscaping out there is also handling that. They handle the mowing for 3 years. So for that warranty period, they will also mow 29 Winding and Burkmar. They got delayed a couple days because of the rain last week and over the weekend. They are out there right now mowing 29. So I'm glad you asked that question and point that out. So yeah, that's being taken care of. But there's also some more seeding that needs to be done to get establishment where we're at.
I would just mention because I don't think we ever talked about the fencing around the stormwater management ponds. So one thing or another. But I would think on the future projects, that might be one of those things to take a look at because riding down there it does it, and especially now it's all shiny and all. It kind of stands out a lot.
Yeah.
Where if it were coated with black or green, it might not. But just on future projects. I don't think it ever dawned on us. I don't ever remember us talking about it.
No, I don't believe
Yeah.
you did. And you know that brand new shiny fence catches a lot of attention as it dulls down. The other thing is a lot of the landscaping is planted in front of that fencing. So as that establishes, then it'll also help to have some of those spaces. But point noted.
Okay, we're down to the Hillsdale extension, and Janelle, do you want to talk about the numerous comments that you received on
Sure.
the city's project?
Sure. So we got 35 emails. Phone calls I don't tend to keep count of because they tend to repeat what the emails are. So I got 5 compliments on the project, a lot for the construction workers that are out in the field doing all the work and how pleasant they've been and accommodating, and they're trying to work with the citizens, and that's been noted. So that was good to see. We had 3 comments regarding sidewalk and bike lane connectivity, particularly around Greenbrier and Hillsdale. And we've instituted several temporary paths to try and get people where they need to go. Some of them have been very disjointed. We had to eliminate a connection along Hillsdale going north towards the Food Lion for a portion while we got the new segment in. That was reestablished with some barrels in the roadway so you could walk and still be protected from traffic. But there was a time period where that was disjointed. The senior center, there was a connection always through a stair system, and there was a time period where when the grading was being done, it couldn't be accommodated, so now there's a shared use path on top of it. And the bus stops have been moved to ensure that there's ADA access, and we've been working with CAT to ensure that. There was also, let's see, so the bus stop relocation, ADA compliance was looked at, project timeline, monitoring of sediment control. After we have rain events, some of our gutter buddies around the inlets get filled up, so they need to be dug out. So that alleviates any kind of flooding, etc. And project safety. So let's see. Oh,
Do that well.
sorry.
No, sorry.
2 comments regarding the expectation of the contractor being proactive with regard to safety and pedestrian activity. So not only does the contractor, he's responsible for his own safety, he's hired a sub that periodically reviews safety measures as well, and then we also have our inspectors on site reviewing that. And when a issue comes up, and I'm certainly notified of it, I chase it down and get it resolved. But so far, our safety has looked good from at least my perspective.
Jeanette, can I jump in with a question?
Yes.
The bus stop relocation, I assume it's pretty clear to people who normally use those bus stops where they need to relocate to. Is there signage or anything?
Yes, there's a temporary sign, and it's welded to a wheel that I keep moving out of the clear zone, and they keep moving back. So I've got to go and move another one. But yes, there is signage, and yeah, it's being communicated with the riders. A lot of employees use that. One comment stating that the needs aren't being met by city and contractor with regard to sidewalks in the area of Senior Center, Laurels, and Rosewood. And again, I responded back letting them know what we were doing and what the plans were moving forward. One question regarding parking lot configuration during construction, that was from Hampton Inn. They were very anxious to pave their parking lot for their franchise agreement. So we let them know the schedule for that, and it is in, and they can pave at any time. They're going to work with our sub for Hillsdale for that. One question regarding access to the senior center during their monthly meetings. There's a large monthly meeting on the second Wednesday that we try and accommodate, and Virginia Statesman's, I believe, and they've been very appreciative that we're trying to work with them and accommodate the large influx of people in and out during that time. One question regarding what will happen to the geese near the senior center, if they're going to be relocated. We haven't harmed any geese or fish. When we bailed out the stormwater basin, we bailed out the fish and put them back in the neighboring creek. However, they are wild animals, so there's no fish getting into the stormwater basin right now because that's plugged. But the geese are urged to move elsewhere, and I don't believe they're wanting to put them back in the new basin. Previous comment has always been get rid of the geese and avoid or prevent them from coming back. This one was they like the geese. So 2 complaints about mud at the Seminole Court Sand Road intersection. That was when we were rebuilding the intersection, and the stone that is being used on this project looks like dirt and looks like mud, but it is actually stone. It's an approved VDOT product. It just doesn't look like the normal stone that we would be using for the bed of a roadway. So access was still being accommodated. They just didn't like the look of it, which I can understand. One question regarding when Seminole Court and Zan Road would be reopened, and that was luckily within a week of when I got that email, so they were very happy. One request for contractor to clean up sediment from a recent storm event. They thought we were dewatering the basin and had gotten sediment everywhere, when really we just had a large storm event. It was like 3 inches in 40 minutes. So we went out the very next day, the very next morning, and made sure everything was cleaned up. And one comment about the speed limit sign being covered in vines, we cut that back. One question regarding the median at Virginia Credit Union and how it appears different on the plans. It actually is the same. It was always in the shape of kind of a hot dog. We changed the sidewalk behind it. We could not make it more of a pork chop or a directional median because that would have conflicted with the ADA path for the pedestrians. So we changed it to a 7-inch commercial entrance, and that helped us keep the 2% cross slope that's required for ADA requirements. So I believe that's been worked out. One complaint regarding not being able to access the Laurels due to contractor equipment blocking the entrance. That was when we were doing, performing the traffic switch of the old section of Hillsdale to the new section, and they were doing asphalt lifts that were being done very quickly. But in order to do that, you have to add a layer of asphalt at a certain point, roll it, let it cool, and put traffic back on it. So there were 4 interruptions of about 10 minutes where people could not go to Pepsi Place or whatever direction they might want to go. They were being waved through, so they had to loop back around. 7 comments about the Hillsdale-Greenbrier intersection is a mess, confusing and dangerous. That was exactly the same time. It was a new traffic configurations. We had variable message signs that were put up. One of them lost juice. We got that reestablished. We also went out and looked at the field and made sure if we needed to move any equipment or barrels or anything like that after the transition. And we also added a stop sign. So it's a 4-way stop. It's not a 2-way stop. We've reviewed the sight distance at that intersection, and we're recommending that it remain a 4-way stop, and we're working with VDOT on that. One question regarding when construction debris would be removed. A tenant wanted some light poles off their property, and we were working with the property owner who wants to retain the lights of when he's going to move that for the tenant. And then one request to take down the old stop sign at Old Hillsdale Drive. That was done that day where it was in the old section, so you had 2 stop signs, and it just needed to be bagged. So that was quickly done.
Jeanette, go back to the Hillsdale-Greenbrier intersection that a number of people commented on.
Yes.
Was the confusion and danger there, was that a construction situation where things were being rerouted during construction, or is it's now done and people think this is confusing and dangerous?
It was now done. It's confusing. It's new. People weren't quite sure how to get to Food Lion, so every time I would go out there with the guys, someone would roll down their window and want to know how to get to the senior center. We'd have to. People just got disoriented. So we made sure that everything was appropriate in the field. There were no safety issues. Variable message signs, trying to get notice out. And now that it has calmed down, I'm getting compliments, which I wasn't expecting, but because we're not done yet.
Okay, thanks.
One question regarding the bike lanes that begin at Briar Road and stop at the entrance to Food Lion. So that's north of our project, so we forwarded that on to VDOT to see if there's going to be any additional adjustments to the bike lanes north of this project. With our project, bike lanes end at Greenbrier, and the shared use path ends at Greenbrier and the bike lanes pick up. So they just want to make sure that that connection is improved, I guess. One complaint that heavy equipment is backing out into roadway with no spotters or flaggers present, concerned about safety. That was actually the senior center parking lot that they were concerned about. The fellow was using his equipment, looking both ways, and he has a backup monitor as well as beeping. But the senior center did not care for that, so within 8 minutes we had them move so that they were accessing it from the other property. So that was taken care of. let's see, one question about timing of an address change at the Laurels, and I forwarded that on to the county. We are preparing for address changes within the city and the county for this whole alignment, have that coordinated, and have been communicating with anyone impacted. So this person, I believe, was new to the Laurels. One question regarding the signs at the end of the pedestrian pass that seem to put pedestrians out into the roadway, potentially endangering them. The first request I got from them, they wanted to have us point to the actual path because they didn't think people saw it. And then this one was they were concerned that you're exiting a path and going onto a roadway, which yes, you needed to cross the street. The change in material should notify a non-sighted person and a person that could see. It should be obvious what was going on. So we're trying to do the best we can with signage there. One comment regarding lack of notice from blocking off access to a business, and that was again the senior center, and that was redoing their parking lot and doing the work, and they felt like they weren't given notice, and we have been talking to them like every day. So we're going to continue to work on communication with them.
Very good.
That's it.
The question about the bike lanes
Mhm.
that you forwarded to VDOT,
Yes.
does VDOT have an answer to that question?
Yeah, I checked it out. So when the county did the bike lane project and the crossings up at the north section of Hillsdale, there's a small section there south of Ranchlands Boulevard that I think this starts at. And there's not adequate there was never adequate width between the curbing and the gutter pan on the existing road to just restripe those bike lanes. So they actually striped white lines on the road without bicycle markers, and they get down from 1 to 2 feet probably in width. There are no plans now that I'm aware of, unless the county, I don't know if it's a county project, I don't think it is, but there are no plans right now to widen that curve. So to add the bike lanes there physically would require road widening. And the previous project concentrated on mostly those median areas in there, curb ramps, and no widening of the project. So just through that section, they just couldn't accommodate.
Maybe worth, as you guys are doing the bike and ped plan, that's a pretty important link there. It'd be good to include that one. Don't let it fall off the radar screen.
And I just had a quick question on the four-way stop. First, I think it's probably a good idea, but I am a little concerned how much that we make sure we're keeping the neighborhoods involved or are aware of that possible changes. As there was a lot of concern, as people remember, with not having a signal there. So any other change like that, I expect there to be a lot of concern with it. So making sure we're keeping the public informed along the way.
Yeah, I gave several traffic alerts, and then I'll be doing a monthly update, and we'll be making note of that.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, quite honestly, we've been over a lot of similar types of comments over the past 2 years specifically, and it's important for us to be transparent and tell the good, bad, and the ugly. So, Jeanette, thanks for going over all that. I know you're in a disruptive portion of the project, especially up there at Greenbrier. So there's going to be feedback. It's not always going to be good. So thank you.
We're going to talk about the overall project schedule on a later agenda item.
Yeah, we've got the project overview, or status update. Yeah.
And as you can see, our input and our hotline are dwindling, so the hotline was actually shut down and closed after the project was completed. And this is our recommendations and requests from last meeting. As a refresher, we talked about vegetation, and we're covering that in agenda item number 6. And then we talked about our final meeting. We scheduled that for November the 9th at our normal time. So we may want to revisit that depending on how we feel about the proceedings today, whether or not that's even necessary. But those are the 2 things we talked about last time we met back in June. So,
Yeah, I mean,
any comments on that? The necessity for that last meeting? As I recall the conversation, we wanted to wait a few months to see how everything was flowing, and then maybe have a a celebratory, discussion about what was good, what wasn't so good, what could be improved, and that sort of thing. Does the panel feel like that would be beneficial and advantageous, or?
I still think it'd be useful to have another meeting, just because Hillsdale isn't complete yet. Part of me wonders if November 9th is, assuming Hillsdale is still on schedule, I wonder if November 9th is too soon to the completion of the project to be able to come in and share input on how it's going or any tweaks that may be needed. My opinion is it'd still be valuable to have another meeting.
Yeah, and this is exactly kind of what we talked about last time, and when you start getting a little later into November and obviously December, it gets difficult. So, I mean, I guess we can think about it and people say, yeah, 9th or no, it should be later, but if we start getting into late November, then Thanksgiving and travel, and it becomes, we don't want to have a meeting where there's only one or two people who are able to show up. And yeah, but yeah, certainly think about it and make a suggestion.
Personally, I'd like to keep the November 9th meeting. My reason for that is that's just as Hillsdale's wrapping up, and if there are any changes being considered or being addressed for you, get in. You guys are Jeanette, are going to be trying to do project closeout, everything. I'd really like to make sure we get that stuff on the table before you get too far down the line.
I see a lot of head nodding, so.
And ideally, if everything stays on schedule for October 30th completion, that last bit of that project is really going to be the cleanup, touch up. Operationally, we should have a pretty decent understanding of how it's operating, with people able to find their way. And then certainly after that, if there are any issues, let the city know, let us know, and work together to get them worked out with signage or locations, things like that.
Okay, so we'll keep it on November 9th. Very good. Any suggestions for other discussion items at that meeting? Other than
We may touch on this today, but there's been a number of articles and letters to the editor about the trees on Berkmar Drive Extended. I don't know. Some of those articles, at least I guess there was one article, touched on what's going on with that, but it'd be helpful to cover that, I think, either today or at that last
I think let's just go ahead and cover that now. Our contract, and everybody here was involved with the development of the request for proposals, which ended up becoming the contract. And we looked at the 3-year establishment and warranty period for landscaping items. So that's very clear in there. We have a special provision written in there. It's probably 9 pages long about all the things that need to be done. Collectively, as I mentioned before, we made that decision to wait until the fall to replant all these trees that are dying. I mean, we understand that trees have died when you plant them in the summer and it's hot. And we had, right after we planted a lot of those trees, we did have a drought. They would try to water them. It was 98 degrees outside. As soon as they water them, the water evaporates.
So they are watering them?
Yes, they have been coming through with the water truck at one point twice a day.
Okay.
It almost became a lost cause in some cases. But they would come out early in the morning, generally 6:30 in the morning, run the water truck, and sometimes in the evening as well. But
the maintenance is required by contract, right?
Yes.
That watering and...
yes,
Yeah, okay.
Lane Corman's subcontractor, F&F Landscaping, who planted all of those, is the one that's responsible for the next 3 years to also replant or upkeep what's there. So that's for all 3 of the design build projects. We made the decision collectively just to wait until the fall to replant. It didn't make sense to pull a dying tree, put it on one end, and then have it die once again. The reason for the 3-year establishment period is because generally that's how long it will take where the trees can kind of fend for themselves. There's a high likelihood that they'll continue to live, but everybody should be aware that when you plant new trees like this, regardless of if it's in a field or along a roadway, there's generally a high mortality rate. So that's part of the reason why we had the 3-year establishment period in here. So that includes care and maintenance, it includes replacement, and this is not a situation where at the end of the 3 years, a a month before the end of the 3 years, they just come back and replace all the trees.
Right.
So we've had 3 years of dead trees. That's not happening here. And we'll make sure of that. And it also includes mowing. So as we mentioned, today is the first day they're out there. They're supposed to be out there on Tuesday. Rain delay got them tied up a little bit, so they're out there right now, mowing 29 winding, and then on November 12th.
My main question was just to make sure that maintenance is part of the contract, that it's being done.
Yes.
So if they're planting trees and not maintaining them and they die, plant another round of trees, they don't maintain them, that's just an exercise of utility, and the maintenance part seems pretty key. And
Yes.
I'll make a similar point when we get to the RIO vegetation part as well.
Yeah, and that includes RIO. It's the same contract, same special provision. The other thing to be aware of is there is an escrow account. So if, for instance, I don't know that this will happen, but if something happened to F&F Landscaping, if they went out of business, there's that escrow account that we can grab and say, okay, we're going to hire XYZ Landscaping to take over this contract. So there's some fallbacks here, and it's written pretty well, so I expect it'll work out.
I think one thing that made it difficult is that a lot of those trees were planted too late in the season. Because some of them were planted when it was already late spring or early summer.
Yes.
And
Yes.
having planted a few trees, I wouldn't have done it that time of the year. So
Yeah.
I can see why we have a pretty high mortality. And then we, as Dave said, we had a relative drought during several periods in the spring and the summer. So
We did have some significant sections that were available earlier that were planted last fall. Those trees seem to be doing well.
Right.
So that's very encouraging. The ones that were planted during the fall are doing well, and we'll replant the ones that are dying or dead this fall, so that they'll have the same chance.
yeah, ideally, you want to plant trees in late winter, actually. That's
As long as the ground's not frozen, we can plant.
Yeah.
trees.
Yeah. If it's frozen, then you have other problems. Yeah, so.
Thanks.
Dave, is there any retainage on the contract, or is it just the escrow?
Well, it's an escrow
It's just the
that,
escrow.
that if something happens, we can pull that. I mean, it's kind of like a retainage, it's just not term retainage. Yeah. So that money is in escrow with Lake Norman. So if it's, basically they would be on the hook to find another landscape.
Okay.
But if for some reason they refuse to, we would do it. I don't expect that they would refuse to.
Any other discussion items today?
Yeah, I have a few, but
Okay.
I don't know if I can take up that much time. I got an earful.
Way too much time on your hands
Pardon?
between meetings.
Well, that's what
Just
happens.
picking up.
I got an earful of the fences too, for my wife. How ugly they are. And this is one of those things, having lived in Europe back 40 years ago, I saw a lot of products that relate to urban design. And most of that stuff eventually showed up in the States as well. But when it comes to fences, I never saw chain link fences. The fences there are essentially made up of rods that are welded together, like in a grid, somewhat similar to what used for reinforcement in concrete. And they're powder coated, painted, generally green, and they're very attractive. And when I first saw them in Europe, I said, oh, this is a really good alternative to chain link fences. 40 years later, we still have chain link fences. So this is an idle comment, but sometimes I hope that some of these idle comments somehow get into VDOT. Maybe VDOT will look into this in future projects, that hopefully these type of fences show up in the U.S. market as well, because what a difference. I drove Berkman Drive today, and I wonder if you already are taking a traffic count there. One thing that impressed me is how little traffic there was on Berkman Drive. And again, it's an idle comment, but I expected to see more, because the first time I drove the entire length of it. While I was driving there, I also went to the extension of Berkman Drive, which is called Meeting Street. For some reason, it has a different name. And there's another traffic circle at the crossing of Meeting Street and Timberwood, and I was amazed about how nice the landscape is on that traffic circle. You know, I've seen lots of traffic circles over the years, in the last 10, 15 years since that became fashionable. They have really one of the nicest landscapings in that traffic circle. So again, I noticed Chip is taking notes, and again, I'm just, it's part of the idle comments.
This is his
Why not?
grocery list. This is his grocery list.
Well, whatever. I have a grocery list too.
Just kidding.
The other thing, on the GSI, I noticed that there are barrels on both sides,
Yes.
and there is something happening.
Yes.
I assume it's maybe a readjustment of the markings on the pavement or something, but I'm just curious.
I'll tell you exactly, I can answer that right
Yeah.
now. So in our contract, VDOT is moving more toward what we refer to as tape. So it's
What?
tape.
Yes.
So it's a class 6, type E class 6 pavement marking,
Yeah.
which is a tape that's applied down when the project is paved.
Yes.
There was some real challenges when they were paving those gore areas there at Rio, and I mean, whether it's debatable as to whether or not they were able to apply it 100% correctly, but regardless, when the snow came and the snow plows came through, they really tore up that tape. So we reached a deal with Lane Corman to switch from the tape to thermoplastic paint. So on all the projects, because the paint tends to hold up a little bit better. That was actually a refund in cost back to the Commonwealth, so we saved money, and they went out there and are replacing what is at Rio. So that's why that's there. The reason they haven't finished it yet is they have to do a moisture test before they can apply that paint, and it's like every night they go out there, the humidity goes way up, or we get rain like we did last night. But as soon as we get some dry pavement in the evenings, they're going to repaint.
I figured it had to be
Yeah.
something related to the markings,
No,
because
it's
I noticed
very-
some of them were missing now. And they will be exactly the same they were before, it's just a
Yes.
different technique.
Yes,
Okay.
just a different material.
That was just the
And it'll
curiosity
have a little
department.
better longevity. So we were really frustrated, the project personnel, when we came in after the snow and saw little pieces of tape all over the road. It's like, so, yeah, we're fixing it now.
Yeah, okay, I was just, I figured it had to be something along those lines, but I couldn't figure out. I figured that you would know more about it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I brought it up. Then, again, I must be getting old because I'm telling too many war stories about 40 years ago. Pepsi Place now is changing its name to Hillsdale. Again, one thing I saw in Europe is they also, in some cases, they had street name changes. And they had a pretty interesting thing that they did, I guess, for the few years after transition. They would have the sign on top, the new sign, the name of the street. And underneath, they would have the old name with a little red line going across diagonally, so that people that had old addresses and got confused, they would still say, oh, okay. I don't know if that's an idea worth pursuing, but I just wanted to share.
Now we have Google.
Okay, people don't need it.
We're just gonna get rid of signs.
Yeah, get rid of the signs that.
But that's a
cars
good
go
point,
with
though.
it.
I mean, I guess notifying, we did a lot of that with, especially Berkmar, and the reconfiguration of Rio is reaching out to all those organizations that do that. I can tell you that they don't listen very well all the time, but once they update it, it seems like 98% of the population.
I just felt that it's something that rang a bell that I wanted
And
to
I
share
know-
for whatever it's worth. And then I have one more request.
Sure.
For next meeting, could you send out an email like a week before, because I almost slept through
Okay.
coming to this meeting.
Did you not
I'm
get the
done.
one on Monday?
What?
The one on Monday when we send out the agenda?
Oh, you did send out an agenda?
It's
I
in the
didn't see it.
packet around too, right?
Usually.
Hmm?
Greg also sent the packet around.
Yeah.
You've been sleeping through your emails too.
We'll have to check and make sure, we'll have to check and make sure your email address
Maybe
is
I'm
correct.
not on the list anymore.
You were, I mean, I
Maybe
know.
for a good reason, I don't know.
Could be a typo or something, we'll find out.
I do want to just, I mean, it's like you, observation, but with your Berkmar, the traffic counts and things, for some reason I tend to find myself going, my vet's up near the airport, going to the airport, traveling that way a good bit. I catch myself not even thinking about Berkmar because it's so easy to travel on 29.
That's true too.
The time it takes me, and of course we cover Green, so I'm going up to Green a lot. I mean, I've purposefully timed it both ways, but I catch myself just staying on 29 because it's so easy now. And I wonder if, for a while, if that's going to be the case of improving both of them at the same time makes it, well, gosh, 20,
Well, what
29
would make a
works.
difference is extending, officially it's Meeting Street all the way to Airport Road.
Yes,
That would
that would.
make a big difference, I'm sure.
I found myself intrigued by the fact that I have an option, that I could go and I'm saying, okay, I'll take Parkmore today, and it's a nice, pretty calming
Yeah.
drive, and so the options are good.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
I think people are also still just figuring out that it's there.
Yeah.
The people I've spoken to, when I tell them that's an option, they use it, they come back to me and then say, wow, it's incredible. It's great.
Lou, I know you had something.
Yeah, I'm just anecdotally, Berkmar is actually pretty busy in the morning and in the evening around commuting time. I live up in Greene County, and I'm, going to our former office now on Woodburn Road. I used it quite a bit, and there's a good bit of traffic on there. We also noticed that, I think starting yesterday, just traffic in general seems to be a little bit lighter, probably because school's back in session. So I think it's a certain amount of time of day. The other thing is just about any time of day, you will see bikers, walkers, runners. The other day, I saw 2 guys on skateboards using the bike lanes on Berkmar. So it is truly a multimodal
Well, I saw
transportation route.
But I saw relatively few cars.
Yeah.
And that was about 10:45.
Yeah.
I did want to note that the street name has actually been, the board has changed it from Meeting Street to Berkmar now. They just haven't got the new signs
Oh,
up, but
I
it
see.
has been changed. It will be Berkmar.
Officially, it's changed already.
Yeah, officially, it's changed.
I was
already.
surprised that because
Well, it was-
I didn't even know that there was a Meeting Street.
It was
And
a
I look
street
at the sign
before,
and says,
it was a street before, the Berkmar project.
Yeah, okay, yeah, makes
Went
sense.
to contracts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dave,
So-
is there any plan to do a formal traffic count as part of the project, or is that something that happens?
We hadn't planned on doing one as part of the contract, but I'm sure that we can.
We can count it at any time. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to think. Maybe early to mid-October is a good time to take initial count.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good. Then we'd have the data by the November 9th
Yeah.
meeting.
Nice.
Interesting to watch it over time, too.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're gonna
I
see
think it's
it
a good one.
start creeping up as,
Yeah.
people figure it out, and then obviously as more development occurs, up at Island E, more residential areas.
Okay, any more comments or discussion items before we go to some updates? Sorry, I'll turn it over to.
Okay, our familiar old construction milestone chart has a lot of green on it now, which is fantastic. I don't know if they're all the right shade of green. I apologize if they're not. But we see here that 29 Widening, Berkmar, the 2 remaining design-build projects obviously are complete. Those were completed in early July, so or mid-July. I think July 21st was our official completion date. So everything is done there. We had that shown in June, assuming end of June, full incentive. So I didn't make anything red there because by contract, I'm not late because contract said October 30th. So good news there. Does anybody have any comments or questions about the design build projects?
Good, covered it.
Yeah. So Hillsdale, the remaining one, I know there's been some shuffling around in the schedule. This was kind of a best guess at the moment, but we're seeing about up to 65% on grading, drainage, and paving north of Greenbrier. That probably every day that number's creeping up. That's a big focal point of the work out there right now. The bridge superstructure is hanging in there about 65%. Last time we talked, it was about 30%. So the remaining work is the sidewalk on either side of the bridge. I think next week the approach slabs are going to be poured, and then the parapet walls. So that's a big chunk of that bridge work that will get knocked out here coming up shortly. Grading, drainage, and paving between Greenbrier and Seminole Court, right there around 65%. Another item they're hitting pretty hard lately. Roundabouts hanging out at 90%, and the reason it hasn't gone red is because I think that was the intent. Get that completed, get it open to traffic, come back and do all the touch-up items later. So that last 10% is really those final items like the final surface course and grass establishment, landscaping, things like that. Grading, drainage, and paving in Seminole Court, 75%. I think pretty much everything from south of Seminole Court is pretty well done up to the intermediate asphalt layer and the curb and everything. And then north of there is what they've been working on, that approach to the bridge, right, that goes through the building. And then Greenbrier signal infrastructure and the Seminole Court signal. I don't know if you want to, I'm not real familiar with where we're at on those, but I know those are.
The Greenbrier Signal Foundation design, we're on around 4th resubmittal for that. There's just a couple very small details regarding signage and making sure that that's accounted for, but we're just pouring foundations at this point for the equipment. So I'm not too concerned with that. And Seminole, we had a very good coordination meeting with VDOT several weeks ago, because even though this is designed to city specifications, VDOT will most likely be maintaining it and operating it in the future. So making sure that we're appropriately designing it and have the right equipment and right expectations for the contractor. So we have a couple more submittals for that. The mast arms have already been ordered, any of the long lead items, signal equipment, etc. It's just actually erecting them and getting the power source.
And I would imagine that 45% now is all the conduit and that sort of thing. So we're really looking at cabinet stuff. Yeah, okay. So everything inside the cabinet, control room. And I can attest to you, that's not a fun discussion. We went through all that on Rio and 29 widening. It's very, very proprietary, very, in a lot of cases over my head because I'm not a signal technician. So that's good. So any questions about our schedule?
Would this be a good place to talk about, and I can't remember, the whole signalization? I know that we were waiting till all the projects got in place for it to be, I think, 100%. And then there was a change in, if it's over your head, then it's like way over.
I'm talking about the actual control.
All of it's over.
Yeah.
But I remember that there were some discussions.
The last part of our presentation today is going to go over how the corridor is operating now, and not just a guess, but have some actual numerical data that was provided by the Traffic Operations Center. So Joel's going to go over that. He's got 4 or 5 slides at the end, so, in addition to accident data.
So I got asked $1 million question on Hillsdale. I know there was a while back some concern about that October 30th date. How are we feeling as of today?
Well, I've always been concerned since day one, 'cause that's what
That's
I
your
do.
job.
Exactly. The latest schedule submittal has us a couple days behind, but it is almost an everyday conversation on how to ensure that this contract is fulfilled in its entirety without cutting anything and on time to our standards. So we're continuing to have conversations to try and push that and make sure we do meet the October 30th date.
Now, what I've heard, this is anecdotally, so that's a schedule-driven answer. What I've been hearing is that Fielder's Choice is very interested in, obviously they opened the roundabout early. They're very interested in their early completion bonus and roundabout bonus. So it's not that they're just saying, oh, well, we'll finish the project on time. They are very interested in that and appreciative of the fact that it was included. So that's a big motivating factor, and I hope that helps to contribute to the project finishing on time or early.
And that bonus isn't, I know that there was the one for the roundabout, but then there's also the October 30th where,
Well, there's an early completion that's not tied to the roundabout.
Right.
But then the roundabout had two components. It was opening the roundabout early and completing on time. So you can't open the roundabout early and then finish the project 2 months late and still get your incentive.
okay.
So there's the two
So
components.
financially, there's a big difference between October 30th and November 2nd.
Yes,
Okay.
300, well, not quite
150 at the very least.
Right,
Okay.
350 is for a month early,
right.
and then prorated back.
Now, I see the bridge structure, the yellow line, which is light green on your version.
Bridge
Second line of the
This
Hillsdale.
one?
That line, yeah,
Okay.
that's next week. Does that mean that next week, that bridge will be open to traffic?
No,
That was
That's
according to
critical
their
path.
schedule.
yeah.
So, I mean, I would anticipate that, well, it wouldn't be open to construction, but would it be finished? So I don't think that there's any plan to open that bridge to construction until the project is complete.
That will be the last thing that we do
Yeah.
at this point.
Remind me, there's a penalty if they don't finish by October 30th, right? Okay.
Not a penalty. There is liquidated damages of $2,500 a day. And that's to cover our administrative costs of continuing to work on the project.
One last observation, just on this is really minor, but the way the construction complete box is there for Hillsdale, it almost looks like it's expected to be done by the end of September.
Yeah, I mean, that's a holdover
I
for
realize.
you can blame me on. But yeah, October 30th is what that's really
Yeah.
meant. I don't know, if maybe we could add October 30th on there or something. Yeah. I
It's
talked to
not a
Phil.
big deal. I think we all know.
If he's watching, he'll probably send you an email. He does on occasion, so.
Okay.
I was wondering,
Yeah.
I was wondering the
Hold
same
on.
thing.
Yeah. The only reason, I know we all are all aware of the completion date, but if somebody from the public, I just don't want them to be misled. Not critical, obviously.
I'll add that. Okay, anything else on schedule?
One thing you can do is just drop the end of 2016 if you need to create space, maybe.
I'm hoping we don't need to create any space over here.
No, no.
I was thinking just below here, putting, like in parentheses, October 30th. All right, anything else on schedule? Good. Jeanette, you want to walk us through kind of where we're at?
Sure. So we are forming and pouring retaining wall A, and that is the one that is at the Laurel. So we've done 2 segments of it, and we're working on a 3rd one today. They're forming the sidewalk for both sides of the bridge. One side is actually a shared use path, so it's going to be a little bit wider on one side. So they're working on that. They're also working on forming the rebar for the approach slabs, and you'll see a little picture of at least where it's going to go. Landscaping installations have begun, so you can see what we've landscaped around the roundabout, the Virginia Credit Union, all the way to Hampton Inn. We're not certainly finished, but it's these smaller items. It's not the trees yet. So you can start to see what it's going to look like. We are doing a tapping sleeve installation at Greenbrier intersection. That one keeps getting pushed back, but it is a Albemarle County Service Authority utility conflict with one of our mast arm foundations, which helps explain a little bit of the delay there. We're hoping that they do that overnight.
What is a tapping sleeve?
They're just, they're taking a live water line,
Okay.
and they're just making a little U around where we want the foundation to go.
Oh,
So
I see.
it's going
Okay.
through. But it will be, it shouldn't be any operation. We can backfeed from the city side. And again, Albemarle County Service Authority has been very helpful in working with us so we can move their line out of where we would like to be. Placing fill on the shoulder near Greenbrier intersection, that's happening. They're also pouring some sidewalk today, which was very nice to see. They're setting structure 417, that's on the east side of Pepsi. We're doing the final little bits of the stormwater drainage system, and we're also going to start cammering that. It's all concrete, so we're hoping that everything is approved and accepted, no problem. Grading for curb placement from Greenbrier to Pepsi, so that's continuing. Almost done with that. We have the light pole foundations, installation throughout the project, so you'll see those going up, getting the electricity to them hopefully very soon. So this is the rebar placement and abutment approach slabs that I talked about earlier, and then also pouring. So this is the side, this will also be sidewalk. And this is, yes, looking south at the Greenbrier Hillsdale intersection. On the other side is the section that they now have sidewalks. That's again going to help with pedestrian circulation. We hope to get that over real soon. And hopefully we'll start working on that stormwater basin very quickly as well. And this is another shot of the bridge. So you see the shared use path, the sidewalk, the forms that they started putting on there, and where the approach slab is going to go.
Oh, good. I took these pictures last week, so they probably made a little progress since.
They need to make more, but yes.
Yeah, this is where the approach slabs go here. This was that select fill we've talked about before. It was put behind the abutment. You can see the steel sticking out the fill tie into, and then some of the steel there for the shared use path section that won't have the approach slab.
That's it.
And you don't have any length closures this week, right?
No, we have a little bit of flagging going on, but no closures. And next week, so they're going to be forming and pouring retaining wall A, hopefully finishing that up. They're going to be grading the entrance to the post office, completing that section. Pulling the wire and installing the light poles again throughout. We have 114 light poles, so, and a crew of about 3 people doing it. So they've been very busy trying to get all that done. And we have topsoil placement following the shared use path, asphalt installation, landscaping, and they've got to start working on that stormwater basin. Ready to do it there.
And then you're going to have a flagging operation there, post office coming up, and we'll do that switch over.
Yeah, very small, and then again, just a little bit of flagging. We're not thinking big closure.
Can I make a comment about the light poles?
Sure.
Directed at you, Mark. Their light poles are so much nicer than your light poles. Just for future reference.
I can give you the standards.
So noted.
Is that it? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Okay, so going back to our kind of a carryovers from the last meeting, Morgan had asked us to talk about the planters on the Ryan GSI. So what I put together is kind of what we originally had planned. I know that you had a landscape architect make some comments on that plan, so we made some changes based on those comments. I've got some pictures in here of what do these plans look like, some stuff that I pulled off the internet so we can all know what we're talking about. I know I can spot Lirio from a mile away now, and I see that y'all have been planting that on Hillsdale, and then some pictures of what we actually have planted and kind of what's to come with that. So what we had planned were these 5 species for those planters on the deck. Lirio, little blue stem, which is a native grass, fragrant sumac, knockout rose, and maiden grass. Based on the comments from and I forget his name, Ken, we made these modifications. We got rid of a little blue stem. I think that was a little bit tall and potentially it lays over. So fragrant sumac we got rid of, maiden grass we got rid of. We added Amsonia abrici, however you say that. That replaced the little blue stem with the fragrant sumac. And we added switchgrass, which replaced the maiden grass. We did not go with muley grass. We only had one option there, the switchgrass. These are the old sheets that were marked up. Yeah, so these are the comments and suggestions from suggested use of LPDA's planting plan with some modifications. So this is the document that we received that led to these changes. Just so you can see that, have a record of that. And here's some of the notes that were written right on the plan sheet here. Daffodils and Lirio and little blue stems, too floppy, and not enough space for a fragrant sumac. Maiden grass meter invasive, so, and then the Amsonia hybridi instead of the aromatic sumac little blue stem, and no maiden grass. So what do these plants look like? Here's Liriope on the left. It has some little, I guess those are blue flowers on it. The Amsonia hybridi. Again, these are just pictures I pulled from the internet. Muley grass here, we don't have any of that. Excuse me, but I included the picture. Daffodils we had a lot of in the spring, which is typical for daffodils. Knockout rose on the left and the switchgrass on the right.
And those, the roses, you also have a little bit of the median strip on 29th.
Yes.
Because I saw them today, they're flowering nice. And, now I know what they're called, because I'm sick and tired of dealing with other roses that don't do well.
They seem to do well.
Yes, I know they do. I see them in landscaping a lot.
Excuse me, I have something in my throat. These are the pictures of the vegetation that's installed in the planters. The Liriope seems to be doing pretty well. Obviously, it will continue to expand and grow. This is the Amsonia hybridi installed. I wasn't familiar with that beforehand, so learned something there. The switchgrass here, we can see I took a picture of one of the round planters. You kind of see the stalks sticking up. That'll take a little while to establish. In fact, the recommendation is to burn that every year, so it reestablishes even thicker. But we're not going to go out there and burn it, although somebody with a cigarette will. Knockout rose. We do have some knockout rose in there now, and I didn't show the daffodils because they're not in bloom right now, but they're in the front of the planters. I will say this, with regard to the species that were planted in the planters, I think we met what was intended. With regard to the quantity and now the quality of those, I think there's a little work to do. I think there need to be, the intent was to have more knockout roses along the backs of the planters. There were some sections where I didn't see as many as I expected to see. Also, we have, you can see here, there's a dead stalk. That probably will survive and thrive. It just needs to be cut back. But what I would like to do is this fall, while the landscapers are here planting the other trees, and while when they're done planting, we have the landscape architect come back and they do a report on the adequacy. And so I'd like to have them come back out and say, yes, this meets the plan, or no, it doesn't, and make any recommendations, so that we have a landscape architect actually responding to that instead of me. Never even seen a couple of these species before, but I think that's a better plan. So does that kind of get to the part of?
Just to add a bit, I went out there this morning and I also talked to Ken, and he noticed that things hadn't really taken off. It's clear that some of the sort of clusters, there was one of these round pot planters I looked at where probably a quarter to a third of the plants had browned and were clearly dead or dying. I think you're right that the knockout rows, there's just a couple of those, and I think the plans called for those to be much more robust. But I think you mentioned the quality as well, and Kennan's thought, and he's going to go out there himself too, and I'm happy to provide his observations and thoughts. He thinks it's probably likely a maintenance issue, that these should be thriving more, and just because it's been dry, it's stressed again how important it is to be watering them. And when we had initially offered the recommendations, Kennan had felt it was important to try to get some sort of irrigation system out there on the bridge. It was clear that was an issue with FHW Way, but he feels, just based on our phone conversation, that with proper maintenance, these plants were selected because they're hardy and they can endure in a tough environment like that, but they still have to get some maintenance. So I think a key question is how often are these
Yeah.
being watered? Is that portion of the contract being met? But then I think, Dave, you're also right to question whether the quantity is sufficient.
I think that, quite honestly, you say, was the contract being met with regard to maintenance? I cannot say yes to that. Because there was a great deal of landscaping that had to be installed on 29 and Burnt Bar. And quite honestly, I'll tell you, as Lane Corman doing the construction, they were pushing the landscapers, and they were opening something up and saying, okay, it's ready to be planted, go do it, and do it by this time tomorrow. So they really turned their attention away from the watering of the rye planters. So we're going to shift their focus back to, okay, let's get these in the fall, let's get the plantings the way they need to be. I was expecting 6 to 8 knockout roses along the back of each one of those, and some of them had 2. I think one of them had 4. One of them had like 1. So let's establish let's plant what needs to be planted, and let's get on a regular maintenance schedule so that they can establish and then grow from there.
I think that's right. I mean, I certainly understand priority was elsewhere,
Yeah.
not on these planters as things came down to the finish line. But I appreciate what you're saying going forward. Now let's focus on these. Let's get a proper number in there, and let's take care of them so that they can grow. It's kind of like with the trees at Berkmar. If we don't take care of them, it's just going to be this futile exercise of replanting, and it's just a waste of energy and money. So
Yeah.
maintenance, I think, is key.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other comments on the plan moving forward with Ryan, acknowledging that we've got some work to do here?
I also wanted to mention, when I went out there this morning and used the crosswalks, it worked beautifully. A very short wait to get across and then a short wait to get back. And there's a gentleman on his way to work that was using the crosswalk. It was that's a nice addition to that.
I guess more importantly, safely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I noticed here, when you make that right turn from Rio headed eastbound to 29 southbound, there's no turn on red, and then as it's getting ready to turn green, there's a sign up there that says, make sure you yield to pedestrians.
If a pedestrian makes a call,
Yeah.
it will activate that sign. It's actually really bright. It's an LED sign.
Yeah.
So it seems to be getting people's attention, and hopefully everybody pays attention to it.
Got my attention. I do have a clarification question. The arrow is still red, but that light, the pedestrian, yield to pedestrians and crosswalk, if that lights up, technically you're still not supposed to turn right at that point? It's not until it turns green?
Correct.
Right.
A red arrow by law is no right turn on red.
All right, I owe the woman who was in front of me an apology.
Maybe she's watching.
The post 3 years for the landscaping, VDOT or county maintenance?
Joel, I'll defer to you. You know more about that than I
I'll defer to Mark.
I
I've been in discussions with Trevor Henry about landscaping. We met it when this first came up 6 or 8 months ago. I think he's preparing to have a maintenance schedule.
We're
for all
looking
this.
at it right now, and we obviously can't speak for the board. The board hasn't made a decision yet, but we're anticipating that the county will step up.
Yeah.
Hopefully look for volunteers as well to help with it.
And Trevor's looking for, one thing that Trevor's looking to do is have some inmate workforce and things like that. I believe that they might have just gone under agreement, so that's an option. But also, currently the county does do the mowing in the median 329 and all the other entrance corridors. So I think we have permits open for that. So I believe that the intent is that these will be added, this kind of will be added to that program.
Charlottesville Garden Club will probably do a fine job with it. Okay. So we'll move on to the budget. We had a pretty significant change, obviously, here on the design build projects. About $5 million additional expended. So right now, we are almost fully invoiced for that. We're expecting probably just one more invoice, which will also include the incentives. So we've paid out right now $123,490,866. We have $11,152,304 in approved change orders. This includes Not only the early completion incentive for the RIO GSI, but also the overall early completion incentive. That number ended up being $1,085,124. So they did not get all of the $1.3 million that they could have gotten, but they got a pretty healthy chunk of it. You see here our exposure has gone to zero. So we moved $1,085,124 over to approved change orders. We're paying that incentive through a change order to the contract, and went ahead and wiped this clean. We do not foresee any other risk. All the work on the projects, with the exception of the landscaping items and vegetation, is complete. Anything else is on them. And so we do not foresee any other risk here to the taxpayers or the Commonwealth of Virginia. Remaining contract value at about $4.4 million. You see this went down because we paid almost $5 million. We added in the incentive so that number doesn't match the expenditure. Total anticipated construction expenditures went down a little bit because of the difference between the maximum incentive and what we actually paid out. So we kind of saved about almost $215,000 there. None of these items on the right, the 6-year plan allocations have changed since we started this. On 29-250, that still has not been completely closed out, although I think we had a credit back to the department for some fuel and asphalt adjustments. And there's still some debate about some asphalt quantities, so that's why that hasn't been completely paid out. I thought we had already taken care of that, but we've actually reduced the exposure on that project to $60,000, thinking that whichever way this asphalt dispute goes, either it will be $60,000 in our favor or $60,000 in their favor, in the ballpark, a little less than $60,000. So I think that's an appropriate number for that exposure at this point. Remaining contract value, we looked at that before, that was above the initial contract value. Obviously, we paid out $12 million. This went down, so the negative number went down, went up actually closer to zero, 21,000, which matches that adjustment there. Still 12.1 million, still below the 6-year plan allocations. Adaptive, there's been no change on that other than relieving risk. And we've kind of been through the change in direction on that. We feel like where we're at right now with the technology in place, we're going to be as good or better than Adaptive, and we still have this remaining contract value of roughly $1.5 million we will have to pay out. So I think that's a good decision and good use of the taxpayers' dollars. Hillsdale, we had about $1.5 million payment made on the last invoice. We saw some money, $16,866 moved from exposure to approved change order. Remaining contract value changed by the difference between these two numbers, so about $1.5 million, and no change in the anticipated construction cost, and no change in the 6-year plan allocation. And you can see all the changes here from June of the last month. So the totals for all the projects here. Does anybody have any questions about where we're at financially with the projects?
It's not a question, it's a comment. I think I've made it before. I'll probably make it today and again in November. When you look at this sheet and the scheduling sheet, this is a job very, very well done, and something that I think needs to be shared. And I know a lot of people have talked about it's set the bar for other major projects around the Commonwealth, but to look at just those two documents alone is just worth tooting your own horn a little bit, I think, because, and what'll make it even better is probably in a few months when you're able to show the performance standards of the traffic counts. You know, I just don't think it can be said enough how successful I feel this whole process has been.
Thank you. Thank you for being involved from day on to help with that. Okay, good. All right. One of the other big things we look at is the difference between these numbers. So we're pretty well below budget overall, so we're happy about that. So Joel is going to tell us a little bit about accidents, a little bit about some performance measures that we've seen to date, and how we're doing. That's how we'll kind of close out the presentation and have obviously some feedback opportunity or something that you all would like to see in the next meeting. Thanks, Joel.
All right, well, we've continued to monitor the accidents, crashes along Rio Road. I will say we do not have additional Best Buy ramp crashes now. They're still only updated through December. However, I have new updates through April 30th for Rio. The reason for that is I have to use a different method of collecting crash data for the Best Buy ramp. It's much more difficult. It goes between Charlottesville and Albemarle County. It also has very small segments of all these ramps that if you run the spreadsheet for everything, I'm not confident that I'm getting all the results, so I don't want to show you data that I'm not confident in. When I got the Best Buy data the first time, I actually had to click on each crash I could see on the map. That data is not updated as regularly as what I get Rio from, so I'm going to wait until I'm confident in that data. So the Rio data is looking very good still. Our total number of crashes continue to be down. What we showed you last time, the 9 crashes that I saw that was incomplete data, that was actually ended up when they said that it was complete. We still have 9 crashes, so nothing came up from last time. So our totals now through April, looking at 5 years of data, we're going from 70s, 80s down to 41 crashes. This is going from the whole project limits from Woodbrook all the way down to 29th place. You can see our injury crashes are down also. We report that the severe injury, the one that was prior to December 30th. There were 2 minor injuries that show up in the January to April data that we didn't see previously. Those occurred. Is there a pointer on this?
Yes.
Yep.
The injury crashes, one was up here, and I think one was a rear end crash. One of these green dots down here. You'll see I made a note, there's the 2 side swipes there. The stars are the new crashes that we haven't seen before that are the January to April data. So I made them as stars here. One of the concerns was the weaving movements at all times, so we always look at these side swipes here. These 2 side swipes that appear to be in that area that where the traffic comes back together, those are actually both from vehicles coming out of Albemarle Square and side swiping. I looked at both those reports. One said they didn't see the vehicle coming, and the other said they misjudged the timing of the vehicle. So it doesn't appear to be a merging issue. We still have a little cluster up here at Woodbrook, but all in all, the crash data is looking way down, especially at your intersections here. So things are good. I think as we look from December on, as we get more data, this is obviously, we're still under construction from July to December on this project. If you actually look at just this year's numbers from when we were complete with the project, the percentages are actually lower. So the percentages are lower. So more happened during construction than we're seeing right now. I looked at data moving forward. May was a bad month, so we'll see that next time. But so far, things are looking really good. Are there any questions on crashes?
Yeah, could you repeat, I think you explained it, but could you repeat it? The significance, like side swap, same direction, some are stars and some are just dots.
Yeah, any stars on here. So what I've been doing on the maps is the stars represent data that wasn't presented at the previous VDOT meeting.
Okay, so those.
So I pay more attention to those stars and look at those reports. I print out all those reports and make sure we're not seeing anything project related.
Okay, the stars are more recent data.
Yeah, the stars on here represent, January to April 30th of this year. So this is some new data that we have to present today. This is travel times. This is for from Hydraulic Road up to Airport Road. And you'll see here, we compared two dates, April 9th and 10th of 2014, pre-construction, with August 9th and 10th, 2017. You see pretty significant time savings over here. Average about 2 minutes and 11 seconds in the overall, and about 2.5 to 2 minutes and 40 seconds in the peak hours if you average those numbers out. Your northbound traffic, your AM peak, midday, and PM peak, and then your southbound traffic down here. So the numbers are looking really good. The significance of August was that all the projects were complete, signal systems were adjusted, and we'll continue to adjust the signal systems, and I have a couple things to show you specifically on the signals, the performance metrics, but overall, all the projects together are working very well. Now this is really fun to look at. This is showing, the next two slides are showing how our signals are performing, okay? So what you're seeing your travel time along this axis and your time of day here. So 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., this area is your AM peak hour. 4 to 6 here, this is your PM peak hour, and this is your midday right here. This is northbound traffic, okay? And the lines, these lines all up here represent March, April, May, and June. We made our latest adjustment to the traffic signals according to the data we were getting from the performance metrics to the midday right here on June 15th. So the reason you see the yellow starting to see an improvement, because the average travel times, half the month were not so good in the midday, half the month were very good. But you'll see the July data really flattened out across there. So we're seeing really good performance throughout the day now on the corridor in the northbound direction. And then once the projects were done, we think a lot of the difference between the blue line, July here, and the green line, August, is due to the construction of the Route 29 widening project being completed. So we think that that had a lot to do with increasing the speeds through there. So we're seeing additional performance down there. I told the guys I wanted to do better. I think I'm very confident that we're at or exceeding what Adaptive would do already on this corridor. And I think we'll continue to see that. You see even the southbound direction, we were complaining about the southbound midday, so you even see a bigger performance increase in that midday southbound corridor. So I think these are really great results. Once again, you see some improvements because of the completion of the projects. And I think we can do, if we continue to see this trend and do better, it's great. It's great use of public money and just getting these projects done. Any questions on this data?
So just a
Yes.
question, how is this generated? Is it computer model, or is this you in your car with a
Nope,
stopwatch?
this is Bluetooth. This is Bluetooth. This is picking up people's phones from one signal to the last signal and actually calculating travel times. So this is real. This is real.
About as accurate
Yeah.
as you can.
And we get hundreds of hits throughout the day on this.
So you're monitoring my phone when I drive?
Yes, especially you. I heard your conversation. I heard what you said about Dave.
Hey, I wanted to.
This is not just, in all honesty, it's
Mm.
what did he say last night at the meeting about the Bluetooth? Paul
Well,
said
it just
something.
tracks the signal.
It does not
It's
track anything, but it doesn't even know it's your phone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it picks a particular phone and follows it, so to
Yeah.
speak.
This point's for John as much as anyone. When the CTB met here 2 or 3 months ago, obviously the Route 29 Solutions projects were a big focus of part of the discussion. One of the members, I think Ms. Valentine, said it'd be great to get some of this data once it's out to see how these projects have been performing. I think it'd be fantastic if you guys could get this information to the CTB so they can see just how successful these
Yeah,
are.
no, we will do that. I think the one thing that we wanted to do to make sure the trend continued and also get some data to see if it's still consistent once all the students are back to school. Because in August, everybody knows traffic's a little bit lighter, and we didn't want somebody start poking holes in it before.
Can I address that real quick?
Sure.
I had the same concern because August and April. So I looked at we have continuous count data up around Airport Road on 29. So you can look at any time period or any day of what the traffic is. So I actually looked at, when I say April 9th and 10th of 14 versus, can you go back to that? One more. When you look at April 9th and 10th, 2014 versus August 9th and 10th, 2017, on the 14 data, April 9th, 2014 counted 39,000 vehicles. April 10th was 40,600 vehicles. August 9th of 17 counted 40,500 vehicles, and August 10th counted 41,800 vehicles. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good data.
Why didn't you tell me before I?
Because I just pulled that. I just pulled that. I just thought of that last night to go ahead and check those continuous count stations to see what kind of volumes we've seen.
Yeah.
I think one of the things to remember to mention, it may seem obvious to some of us, but to remind people that as those traffic accidents go down, your time also goes down, your travel time. Because a lot of it is, as long as there's no accidents or construction, it's going to flow fairly well. It's when there is that one accident, boy, you're stuck in it. So the lower the accidents, the better your travel time.
And the other thing about that, the better your travel time, the lower your accidents.
Yeah.
When you start increasing travel time and decreasing the number of stops, you see a huge decrease in the rear-end crashes. So the better we can keep traffic moving, the lower the number of
I
accidents.
think it's worth reminding the folks that they're related.
Can you go back to the southbound again? I just was real curious if you had any observations. So the peak time in the southbound is not rush hour, but middle of the afternoon. As far
Not
as delays.
necessarily. It wasn't performing as well before June.
Well, I'm looking at the
I
green.
think,
I'm looking at the
Yeah,
green, which
but-
would be August, right?
yeah, your peak times are performing better than the midday. I think that might have to do something with that you don't have as much
Is that,
directional traffic.
okay.
So you have more, I don't know if you have, we could actually look if there's more traffic. during
I'm just
peak
curious,
time,
I mean-
But I think it's going different directions and more side streets maybe.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
As much as we worked one block basically off of 29, and if you go out to get lunch, or you start noticing that things are a little more chaotic at lunchtime. There's more crossing traffic, there's more turning traffic. Lunchtime in that area, there's a lot of people running errands and doing things, and not your traditional going southbound to get into the town or
Okay.
northbound.
So the simple answer to it is, when you do the offset green times, Mark, when you do the offset green times,
Yeah.
it's really easy to do it in one direction.
Sure.
But the other direction, if your signals are
I get
spaced
it.
perfectly, both directions works, but not.
I'm just curious, it's just interesting. All right.
Okay. I think that's a wrap. I've got a couple of action items that I jotted down. I may have missed some. There were some comments, but I did consider them action items. So the action items I did record were making sure everyone on the panel gets proper notice prior to the next meeting. Double check your email address, Emma. There was a suggestion to conduct a traffic count on Berkmar before the November 9th meeting, so we can get an idea of what the traffic is on that arterial. And then there was a minor comment on the construction milestone slide, just to change the construction complete designation there, so jive with the rest of them. So those are the three things I had. Did anyone else?
Just a question on the traffic count, will that have a time of day or will that just be an ADT count?
Are you talking about the Berkmar?
Yeah.
We'll just collect data like we would for anything else, and so
All
we
right.
can get,
Just curious.
we can get as much detail as you want.
Just for the record, Joel's already requested that.
I think you know.
I did it after you guys asked for it.
No.
That's what I do over here.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. We'll see you on November the 9th.